Whom the Gods Fear. By J. Wdowski. Chapter 20. The Marco Polo closed to within 1 kilometer before firing its side thrusters, rotating 180 degrees to engage its main engines. The controlled burn slowed the ship just enough to match the speed of the drifting vessel. The helmsmen, using only short bursts of their directional thrusters, put them in sync with the rotation of the spinning Shingnese warship. The Shingnese ship, to the bridge crew, seemed to have stopped spinning. It was now the stars and Shing 7 that seemed to swirl around the two ships. The Shingnese coastal ship was twice the size of the Polo and was clearly crippled and without any power. Rubel increased the magnification on the Polo's main bridge screen. He zoomed in on the gaping wound that the Polo's rail cannons and CL turrets had blasted into her port-aft side. Shingnese corpses could be clearly made out floating towards them, the unfortunate souls that were unluckily stationed in that section of their ship. Rubel turned to Granite and congratulated him. "Job well done, Commander. You hit them hard and in just the right spot." Not feeling complimented, Granite responded, "Nothing except a battle loss can be half so melancholy as a battle won." "General Robert E. Lee," stated Captain Rubel. "No, it was the Duke of Wellington, supposedly after his defeating Napoleon at Waterloo." Glenn answered, "It was General Lee that also fittingly said, 'It is well that war is so terrible. We should grow too fond of it.'" "No, I know it was General Lee that said both." "Glenn is correct. I was quoting the Duke of Wellington," replied Granite. Rubel referred to his forearm to prove he was correct. Seeing that he was wrong, he said nothing. "You forget, Captain, I used to teach history." Glenn accessed his forearm to order the launch of the two shuttles. Tartar 1 and 2 launched from the Polo's small hangar deck. The Marines were squeezed into Tartar 1, while the 4-man medic team had ample room in Tartar 2. As they came alongside the out-of-control spinning Shingnese ship, Captain Mahan ordered grappling hooks connected to tow lines fired into its hull. Securely attached, he had the pilot of the shuttle pull the alien ship out of its uncontrolled spin. Once the ship was stabilized, they cut loose their tow lines and positioned the shuttle alongside the breached section of the ship. The Marines were already suited up to enter the depressurized section of the Shingnese warship. The Tartar 2 waited 100 meters off the Tartar 1's port side as the Marines boarded the alien ship. Captain Mahan led the first group of Marines himself. His helmet cam was enlarged and projected in the center on the Polo's main bridge screen. The other 6 Marine helmet cams framed Captain Mahan's. The Polo's bridge crew intensely watched in real time as the boarding party made its way through the destroyed section of the alien ship. "It's really hard to maneuver in here," reported back Captain Mahan as he used one hand to pull himself through the ship and used his other, keeping his weapon at the ready. "There isn't any gravity on the ship. The Shingnese have never mastered the force of gravity. They do not have artificial gravity on their ships as we do," Glenn explained. Mahan and his Marines finally made their way to a section of the ship not destroyed by their hits. He was able to get his boarding team into that section and seal an open hatch behind them. Once the hatch was sealed, he had 2 of his Marines work on opening the hatch ahead of him. As the hatch opened, they could sense the air rushing into their small, sealed section. According to Mahan's forearm, the section of ship was now filled with thin but breathable air. The air pressure was too low for them to remove their helmets. Doing so too quickly would cause the nitrogen in their blood to turn into gas and give them all the bends, much like a deep-sea diver that ascends too quickly to the surface. They would need to adjust the pressure in their suits gradually to match that of the alien ships. He relayed this information to the second shuttle to begin depressurizing to match the Shingnese ship. "Not as good as helmet air," he exclaimed, reading the analysis projected on his helmet's visor. "I am beginning our own depressurization of our suits so we can remove our helmets. It will be at least 2 hours before we can match their pressure. Their carbon levels are a bit high, guessing life support is out. If that is the case, there are still crew using oxygen. You may find living crew members in this section of the ship." Glenn broadcasted back to Captain Mahan. "Recommend you proceed with extreme caution." "Aye, Mr. Yeager." Mahan responded. "This is the part where the cat may jump out and startle you. Keep safe, but don't shoot the cat." Mahan smiled. "Understood, Mr. Yeager." The boarding party did not find any cats in the still pressurized section of the Shingnese warship. Instead, deck after deck, they discovered mostly the floating corpses of dead Shingnese whites. It was clear to the landing party that they had taken their own lives. As well-trained the Marines were, it was the first time for any of them to see the aftermath of any battle. The Earth had been at peace longer than any of them had been alive. Seeing the severely wounded and the aftermath of the Whites' ritual suicides hit them more emotionally than they had expected. Mahan was not fazed. He focused on his mission. Only the gravely wounded from the Polo's initial hits on their ship were still alive. After 2 hours, Mahan cleared the medic team to board the vessel. Having secured an airlock on the pressured section of the ship for them to board and transport the severely wounded onto the Tartar II. As soon as the shuttle was filled with wounded, they returned to the Polo, repressurizing the shuttle to match that of the Polo's pressure. They could at least begin treating the wounded aliens on the shuttle until the pressure matched that of Polo's, and they could rush them to the biology medic bay. They then began the 2-hour depressurization of the shuttle to head back to the crippled Shingnese ship to pick up any more wounded. Captain Mahan and his Marines continued their search of the ship. Finally reaching the bridge of the vessel, their helmet sensors directed them to 2 very much alive Shingnese with light wounds. They cautiously approached them from behind. As they got closer, they kept their weapons trained on the aliens, only to discover them both passed out due to the life support systems having been shut down. In what they assumed was the command chair was a brown with slight burns and cuts. Beside him in the other chair was a green, his neck slits gasping for air. The remaining bridge crew of whites had all committed suicide. Mostly by cutting their throats with ceremonial daggers made from the splintered shells of their favorite prey. The shell-shard knives were polished and sharpened to deadly glass-like shines. The handles were made of ivory from the tusks of a herd animal found on their world. They were each individually carved with elaborate designs. Some of the Marines had already begun collecting the daggers as souvenirs. Tartar II returned to evacuate the few more severely wounded whites and 4 of the Marines. Once the Tartar II detached to return to the Polo, the Tartar I positioned itself to take aboard Captain Mahan, his remaining Marines, the captured Brown Commander, and Shingnese Green. I recommend we send my tech team to the Shingnese warship once the Tartar II returns. Commander Granite said as he viewed the Tartar II approaching and the Tartar I disengaging from the Shingnese ship. We should take this opportunity to look over their weapon systems and armor plating. Good idea. Glenn replied. Captain Rubel, can we spare Lieutenant Commander Wdowski? I would like him to lead the tech team to look over their faster sublight engines and their power source. Aye, Mr. Yeager. I think we can spare Wdowski for a few hours. Captain Rubel, send our best computer officer along with the new boarding party. Let's pull as much information we can from their ship's computers. Aye.